What is up, guys? Rick Cacus here, and today we are going to be discussing some new Destiny 2 news. Now, this relates to how the worlds work in Destiny 2. We got a bunch more information about patrol modes, flashpoints, public events, and more, so stay tuned. Now, this information is coming from a new IGN video on the public events and patrol modes within Destiny 2. That'll be linked in the description down below if you guys want to check it out. And so, let's get started. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is to really clarify how patrol mode, how exploration works in Destiny 2, because Bungie talked about the 4 main activities and how they differ from each other that you can do in this exploration mode in Destiny 2. So those activities are as follows. Firstly, adventures. We know about adventures, but essentially they are different missions given out by NPCs that you can find around the map. It was stated, new information today, that these adventures aren't necessarily as sprawling as some may have thought. They're generally going to be somewhat shorter. They are, however, fully voiced, so you're going to have a lot of exposition and information given to you when you're doing these adventures. But a lot of those mechanics function somewhat similarly to the random missions you could do in the Destiny Patrol mission. Killing enemies, collecting certain drops from certain enemies, and going to certain locations, and so on. Now, this is very different from another kind of activity that you can find throughout the worlds, which is main story missions slash side quests. They weren't 100% clear on this, but they talked about that these are missions that pop up. These are full missions that pop up when you're already done with the campaign. And these story missions, these big side quests have, and as you can see in the background, there's a little bit of a different symbol. It's dedicated to the blue symbol with what looks like kind of a crown. And these are going to give a lot more exposition. These missions are going to have you journeying around the entire planet, doing multiple things, encountering bosses, having their own unique mechanics, and these are going to be separate from adventures. And again, Bungie seemed to be saying that these were separate from traditional story missions, which you can also do. Now, a third thing that you can do in patrol mode is the lost sectors. We've known about these, but essentially, they're all really going to break down into hidden dungeons. You're going to travel the world, and according to Bungie, you will be able to find these symbols for lost sectors. You can actually see one right now in the Destiny 2 beta if during the inverted spire strike you simply head to the right. You'll see that, triple rainbow symbol or whatever it actually is for the lost sectors. Now, in the video they showed the player going down into the entrance of this lost sector. In the actual beta, that entrance is blocked off and you can only get into that area by glitching, and when you do, there's really nothing there. In the full game, you'll be able to descend into this large area, that the door will be open, of course, and you will find a boss. Killing that boss will let you open a treasure chest, and that treasure chest will contain, well, they weren't really specific. They keep saying good loot, but what is good loot? It's really relative to the player. Hopefully they will have even up to end game rewards. That would be very neat. We do already know from another news article that these lost sectors are not randomized. They are designed specifically for a certain encounter. So the boss is always going to be the same, the location, the levels of the enemies are all going to be the same. It was talked about that procedural generation was something that Bungie is thinking about at a later time. Now, what was interesting today is that, again, we got that clarification for how lost sectors work. You see this symbol, and then you know there's a cave somewhere around. In this cave is the actual lost sector activity. Bungie actually stated that some of these cave entrances are really well hidden. You're gonna have to go pretty far out of your way, get off your sparrow, do even a jumping puzzle in order to get to these cave entrances, which I thought was really neat. Hopefully there's some high level end game lost sectors that we can discover that are really far out of the way. And moving on from there, the fourth big activity that you can do while exploring, and Bungie talked a lot about this, we got a bunch of new information, is public events. So public events are changing quite a bit in Destiny 2. Firstly, there's going to be a lot more variety apparently. It's not just going to be war sats and killing that one guy that has a billion shields that regenerate so quickly. It's going to be a little bit more interesting things than that. In fact, the public event they showed off in this video was you defending kind of a drop site, a drill site, while a actual Cabal dreadnought hovered above you, shot down at you. It just seemed a little bit more fun than your traditional war sat. There was also another public event that popped up during the gameplay that was never talked about, but it was defending or getting involved in a glimmer extraction in progress. So the Fallen are really after that glimmer. They don't know. It's not used for much, but in any event, 2 more public events were seen. A Disrupt Vex Construction public event and an Ether Harvest public event. So already that's 4 just in this opening video, 4 different public events that we have seen. Now here's another thing new about public events in Destiny 2. They're actually going to have what's referred to as heroic triggers. So you can go to a public event, like let's say you go to a war sat for argument's sake. You can do that war sat public event completely normally, beat it, and get a certain reward. However, there's something you can do, and it wasn't outlined specifically, but there's something you can do to trigger the heroic version of that public event. When you do that, there's going to be harder enemies that spawn in. You're going to have to overcome, like more powerful bosses, more powerful base enemies. And if you do, you're also going to get better rewards than normal. That is really damn cool. And Bungie even said there was more stuff involved with public events that they aren't talking about right now. But this is a perfect segue into the next big chunk of new information, which was really absolute clarity into how Flashpoints work in the game. Flashpoints was talked about quite a while ago, but it was really just the most bare bones understanding of what the heck it was. Now we know fully what's going on. So, every single week, one of the 4 different planets when Destiny 2 releases, so Nessus, Titan, Io, or of course the European Dead Zone, will be featured as a flashpoint. So let's say one week it's Nessus. Now that means that there's going to be a little circle you have to fill up, and that is out of 100%. As you can see here, this player has 0%. Every time you complete a public event, you're going to complete a certain percentage, and once you get to 100%, you're going to get a special reward. Now the reward shown seems to be this prestigious gear. That's a little bit interesting. I noted that the actual text was green. So is this just green gear? Well, that would certainly be quite disappointing if it was, but from how they were talking, and they kept saying this was a point that was really nailed home, is that it's Nightfall level rewards. Nightfall level rewards. Green gear is not Nightfall level rewards. We know that for an absolute fact. So, is there a new rarity that we're looking at right here with prestigious gear represented by green, or perhaps like lighter green, and then the not so rare green that we all, discard immediately is a different shade of green? That's definitely possible, but this is all speculation right now. But prestigious gear is definitely something that is interesting, and I hope we learn more about it. But moving on more about flashpoints. So, this is where things get really interesting, because you're not just having public events at a certain area, you're trying to fulfill a bar and getting some gear, because there's even more stuff going on. So, those public events that are happening for that flashpoint for that week are going to be a little bit different than normal, in the sense that there's going to be a bunch of secret bosses that can only spawn when flashpoints are active. So again, if it's a week where Nessus is a flashpoint, if you do a war sat, if you do that war sat very quickly, or if you activate, let's say, the heroic version of that war sat, you have the chance for a special boss to spawn. And killing that special boss will apparently reward you with better gear. That's really sweet. So that's adding an even bigger layer of depth to this Flashpoint activity. That not only are you trying to grind these public events, but they're going to be different than ever before, depending on, again, how fast you complete them, what you trigger in terms of heroic versions, and so on. And not only that, every single week, everyone's favorite hunter, Cade 6, is going to be selling treasure maps. These treasure maps are for whatever planet is being featured as the Flashpoint planet. And that's really all they said, is that these treasure maps are tied to the Flashpoints. Maybe to begin them, you have to kill one of the certain special bosses. That would be pretty darn cool. But that's even another layer of activity and loot that you can go out and do and earn. So that is really, really sweet. It sounds like there's going to be a lot of content and activities involved for these Flashpoints, for exploration in general in Destiny 2. And quite frankly, hearing all of this, it all sounds quite good, and it makes me kind of disappointed that Bungie didn't put any sort of exploration within the beta. They just had the Inverted Spire Strike, and I feel like, you're not really showing off the best parts of the game if you do that. You make these big strides and innovations in the public event exploration sector, and then you don't even show it off. That's maybe not the best move overall. However, what's done is done. That's some really good news about exploration in Destiny 2 for those of you planning on getting the game. Now guys, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed and found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you want to see more Destiny 2 content, be sure to slap that subscribe button. And if you actually want that to do anything, make sure to press the bell beside subscribe. Now, if you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.